We had mentioned when we began the parsha that there's a question: what was the first of the 10 tests which Avram was tested? Is it Lech Lecho, or there's something which preceded Lech Lecho, which is the Orkazdim being thrown in the kiln? We're going to see in a moment. There's a Pirkei Reb Lezer, which was authored by Reb Lezer ben Hurkinus, that he counts. There's even one before the Orkazdim. That we had said that I'd mentioned the Midrash that Avram, because of his espousal of monotheism, he was a fugitive, and he hid in the cave for 13 years. That Reb Lezer ben Hurkinus, the Pirkei Reb Lezer counts that as the first test. The being in the cave for 13 years, or Kazdim, Lech Lecho is the third test. That's the third test. That's Pirkei Reb Lezer. The Rambam, in his commentary on the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Basor Nisyonus Nisa Kodesh Baruch Hu Avram, 10 tests, he mentions there the first test was Lech Lecho. And the last test was the Akedah. That was the last test. The first was Lech Lecho, and the closing test was the Akedah. And there's a Midrash which supports the Rambam, because we see the Midrash Tanchuma, that the Midrash Tanchuma says the first test was Lech Lecho. It says explicitly, the first test was Lech Lecho, and the last test was Lech Lecho, El Eretz HaMoriah. In terms of the Akedah, Hashem says the same words, Lech Lecho. The opening words was Lech Lecho, go for yourself. And the Akedah was also Lech Lecho, go for yourself, because this is the ultimate test, and you will be the ultimate beneficiary. And it's explicit in the Midrash. It's in the commentary on the Midrash, Tanchuma, he cites the Pirkei Reb Lezer, that Lech Lecho was the third test, and there were two tests which preceded, was the Orkazdim, being thrown in the kiln, and the being in the cave for 13 years. But when I always was aware of this argument between them, but what never resonated was he was in the cave for 13 years. We always find that in number 13, resurfacing. Why 13 years? Why wasn't he in the cave for 5 years, 10 years? 13, we always say, is always numerically, echod is 13. That's what 13 is. Avraham Avinu, the first test, whether he will actually make the grade or not, he's there for 13 years and he comes out and he's still espousing no less that level of monotheism, meaning his faith and belief in Hashem did not waver. And after 13 years, he comes out and now he's full force espousing monotheism. But even after that, Nimrod took him and put him in the kiln because he would not bow to the idol. But the number 13 always resurfaces. I'd mentioned that the Torah, we read in the Navi that David, when he was old, he was very cold. And as much as they put clothing on him, it would not warm his body. So they located a woman, her name was Avishag. She was a virgin, beautiful. And he would lie with her, and her body warmth would help alleviate the cold of David. So Avishag, and he never cohabited with her. David was a holy man. So Avishag says to David, you know, I'm so involved with you, almost except for the act of intimacy. Why don't you marry me? Why don't you marry me? So David says to Avishag, because the halacha is, the law is that a king is not permitted to marry more than 18 wives. And I already maxed out. I have 18 wives. See, she says to him, so why don't you divorce one of the other wives? You married for years to them, marry me. So he says to her, because the Gemara tells us that when a person divorces a wife where the marriage is good, the Mizbech is morid the most. The Mizbech sheds tears. Therefore, it's unjustified. I should divorce any of my previous wives. And since I'm maxed out on 18, I'm not permitted to marry you. So she says to David, he was nearly 7. David lived 70 years. He was nearing his 70th birthday. So she says to him that you're only giving me an excuse, probably because since you're an old man, You no longer have the virility. You're no longer potent, and therefore, since you can't engage sexually with me, that's the reason you give me the story that you maxed out, and that's the reason why you can't divorce any of your previous wives. So immediately, when she tells him that, he calls in Bathsheba. Bathsheba was the mother of Shlomo Melech, and he cohabits with her 13 times in one night. 13 times, and he has the cloth to show that he was involved with 13 nights one night. So I asked the question, it's more in Sanhedrin. So I asked the question, and if he would have cohabited with twice, 3 times, once, why 13th? Why 13 times? So David HaMelech was, after Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe, David was one of the most special Jews who ever lived. David's Melchus Shel Chai V'Kayim. David is the author of the Tehillim. David is the Davidic line where Mashiach will come from his progeny. Everything David did was l'shem shamayim, did for the sake of God. That he cohabited with 13 times to show her that whatever he says and his behavior is totally committed to Yud Gimel, to 13, to the Echad. Everything he did in his life was Echad, revolved, and that was the center, that was the focal point of his life, is 13. That's the reason why he cohabited with 13, that the reason why he told her that he's not permitted to marry her, because if he would, he'd be violating the law of the king taking more than 18 wives. That's why it's 13. Here, the Pirkei Reb Lezer says the first test of Avram was he was in the cave when he was a fugitive for 13 years. And then he came out. So that he had no complaint and he was steadfast in his belief and he continued to espouse monotheism, he withstood that test. That was the first test, but it was 13. Also, everything Avram did was totally l'shem shamayim, for the sake of God, which is the Yud Gimel. Reb Brechia Posach is Posach Shir Hashirim, where Shlomo says, "Achos lonu ketano." We have a young sister, v'shadai lo, and because she's young, she has no breasts. She's not developed as a woman. The makos medaber. What is Shlomo Melech referring to when he makes this statement? Avram, regarding Avram Avinu. When Nimrod had Avram cast into the kiln, Ketano, Avram was Ketano, it was that young girl. Hashem did not perform miracles for Avram. The first miracle that Hashem performed for Avram was to be thrown into the kiln and coming out of the kiln. That's Achos Lanu Ketano. He was Ketano. This was just the beginning of his experience that Hashem performed miracles for him. Why is it called Ochos? It doesn't say Achos, Ochos, with a komatz, Ochos. She'ichas holam lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The word icha means he mended. If you have a tear in it, a piece of cloth, you could sew it and you could mend it. He's able to mend it. Years ago, people today, you tear your suit, your pants. What do? You throw it away. Years ago, you threw nothing away. You take it to the tailor, and you could do it 2 processes. Either it was called darning, or it was called weaving. Darning was that you were able to tell that there was a tear. Weaving means they would reweave it, that you couldn't even tell that there was ever a tear there. Icha means he was able to weave, meaning any question that was posed to him, he was able to reset the world. There's a breach. He was able to seal the breach as if you never recognized the breach. That's what he's able to refute paganism. That was Avram Avinu. She'icha ha'olam le'akadosh baruch hu. He mended the world before Hashem. That's ochos lanu ketano. Kodem is shakrei ma'acher. Like a person, first he tears, a tailor, and then he mends it. Lefichach nikar ochos. That's why Avram's called ochos. For Shadayim ein lo. What Shadayim? Shadayim lo hilubonim. What do the breasts represent in a woman? A woman lactates only when she has a child. Because at this point, Avram had no children yet. This is the continuation of the Pasuk of Shir Hashirim. What is on the day that it's spoken about? The day that Nimrod had given the order to have Avram cast into the kiln. If it is a wall, if it's a stone wall, you will build on it an entity of silver. If he's willing to give his life as a wall, a protective wall, which it's able to withstand many attacks. And he's willing to give his name, his life to sanctify my name. Nivna oleo tiras kesef el Yisrael. He will be the foundation of Klal Yisrael, which are compared to the edifice of silver. Why? Shekrob kanfi yona nechvak bekesef. Because David HaMelech refers to Klal Yisrael as the wings of a dove, which are coated with silver. Vimdelesi. This is the words of Shlomo Shir Hashirim, but if he's like a door, imdalhu melimsa anafsho, but he's not as strong, as confident. The word delis is dalus. Dal is a person who's impoverished, and he's not willing to give his life to sanctify Hashem's name. Notzaleh luach eres. Then we will use a plank of cedar wood. Matzur shem luach eres noch listashdesh. If you go and you paint something or etch something on a wooden door, ultimately it could be smudged. Because wood, it starts deteriorating. So whatever is etched on the door eventually totally deteriorates, becomes smudged. Kach Avram, eini mashgiach olav. If that's the case, you don't make the grade, I will not intervene on your behalf. Amar Avram ani choma. Avram says, I'm the choma. I'm like that wall that deflects all attacks. To give my life to sanctify your name. And not only I, Ella Vishoda Kivigdolos, my breasts are like towers. B'nei Bonov, even my grandchildren, those who emanate from me, who descend from me, Chananya B'shol Vazario, V'dorashel Chananya Ben Trajo V'chaverov. My grandchildren, Chananya and Azario, Chananya Mishol Azario, and the 10 martyrs. Rab Chani ben Trajan, the 10 martyrs, they all gave their lives to sanctify my name. She'idnu nafshem al kedusha shemecha. They will give their lives to sanctify your name. Lefichoch os hayisi be'enav kamotzei shalom. Therefore, I will be established as the one who brings peace. Sheyotze shalom in akivsha. And because of that, because he was willing to give his life, and it was all to establish within himself that is not only he, but his descendants, when they're put in this situation, they'll give their lives to sanctify your name. Therefore, sheyotze shalom in akivsha. And therefore, he came out of the kiln in peace, in a peaceful state. There's a famous word from Rav Chaim Volozhiner in the Ruach Chaim, his commentary on Pirkei Avos, that the reason why Jews throughout the history have the ability to give their lives, to sanctify, to bring back Kiddush Hashem, because the genealogy of the Jew, as we say, Rachmon and Baishan Gomli Chasodim, all the innate characteristic attributes of Jews, which are unique to us, is because we descend from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They inculcated in their neshamas these attributes and qualities, and we being their descendants, we're the heirs, we inherit that genealogy. So because Avram Avinu gave his life to sanctify Hashem's name, and he's the first one to give his life, so he inculcated in his neshama this ability. He says, therefore, Jews throughout history who give their lives al Kiddush Hashem, it's all because Avram Avinu gave his life al Kiddush Hashem. That's a famous word from Chaim Volozhiner, but here we see in the Midrash explicitly. When Avram went into that kiln, he said, not only me, but all my descendants, he didn't know he was coming out alive, but all my descendants, I'm doing it with such a level of purity that I'm changing the genealogy of a human being, that even my descendants, Jews throughout history, why are they able to give their lives? They want to give their lives because their value and their purpose is purely for Kiddush Hashem. So Rechaim Voloshin is really based on this medrash. This medrash right here. This pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Shaddai Kimigdolos, and so on and so on. And therefore, because he made that level of commitment with that level of purity, therefore he came out peaceful, whole from the Kivshon, because this is the future of the Klal Yisrael, which our purpose is Kiddush Hashem.
Rabbi, do we see that in a similar, exactly the same way, that because Abraham, did what he did regarding Bris Milah, at 99?
Hashem says, Avram, Avorchom Vorchecho, I will bless those who bless you. Umakalel Cha'or, and I will curse those who curse you. Now, do you see the difference? I will bless those who will bless you. That means those who will bless you will be blessed in advance, even before they bless you. But those who curse you, I will curse. Why is this the difference? You hear it. Blessing, Hashem gives the blessing to the ones who will bless us before they bless us. But when will he curse those who curse us? Those who curse you will be cursed. They first have to curse to be cursed. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. Now, beautiful Rabbeinu, beautiful Rechaim HaKodesh. Now, if you have two people, one person's at a special level, he gives you a bracha. Another person not at special, gives you a bracha. Although the Gemara tells us, I'll take birchas hedge kal benecha. Don't take anybody's bracha lightly, because even the ordinary person, his bracha has great value, but there's no question, the more special the person is, the greater value is the bracha. So Rechaim HaKodesh says, because Hashem wanted Avram should be the greatest beneficiary of the bracha, he says, those who will bless you, I will bless them in advance, so when they bless you, the bracha should have greater value. Here? I will bless those who will bless you, so when they bless you, they're already considered blessed, so you should be the greater beneficiary. When it comes to the curse, after they curse you, I will curse them. Because you're only affected by a curse if you deserve to be cursed. So therefore, in terms of having them cursed in advance, I don't have to curse them in advance. Only once they curse you, then they will be cursed. This is how that's why there's a difference in the order of the bracha. The bracha for those who bless you proceeds even before they give you the bracha, because ultimately Hashem wants you to be the greatest beneficiary. And with the curse, it's the other way. But then he concludes, and all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. So Rashi himself explains that if a person wants to bless his child or anything, he says, you should be blessed like Avram. You'll be the model of blessing. But there's a famous Rabbeinu Bachya here. Rabbeinu Bachya explains it this way, that, and he quotes a pasuk in Hallel. David HaMelech says, Halo Shem kol goyim, shabhu kol umim, ki gavar alneinu chazdo. Right, we say it in Hallel, pasuk in Tehillim. All the nations of the world, they praise and extol God. Why? Ki gavar alneinu chazdo. Because the chesed of Hashem has overwhelmed us. If it's because it overwhelms them, okay. How is by overwhelming us? Why is that a reason for them to praise Hashem? It's an obvious question. So Rabbeinu Bachya says that all blessing that comes to this world is only because of the Klal Yisrael. That's the only reason why blessing comes to this world. However, the question is, what is our capacity to retain that bracha? That shefa of bracha, what is our capacity to contain? If we're worthy, we have a greater capacity to retain it. If we're not worthy, our capacity is limited, therefore it overflows. it overflows. When it overflows, who gets the overflow? The nations of the world get the overflow. So that's what how Hashem Kol Goyim Shamchut Ki Gavar Aleinu Chasdo. When the chesed of Klal Yisrael, we're overwhelmed with the chesed, they get the overflow. So why are they beneficiaries? They're beneficiaries because Gavar Aleinu Chasdo. So the more that comes to us, that means we're more worthy. If we're less worthy, our capacity is to a lesser limit, they get the overflow. The nation will get the overflow. If you have an ounce cup and you pour in 1,000 gallons, it may go through the cup, but the cup can't contain that whatever you're putting into it. It's who gets the overflow? The rest of the world gets the overflow. So that's Ki Govar. He says, every bracha now that comes to the world goes through you. You are the conduit. So that they are beneficiaries is because everything is through you and it flows out from you to them. As a result of that, Rebbeinu Bach cites the pasuk Tehillim that's the meaning of the pasuk Halo Hashem Kol Goyim Shem Kol Umim Kil Gavar Aleinu Chasdo. You can take a look Rebbeinu Bach here on this pasuk. That's the way he explains it. The Vilna Gaon had very special Talmidim students. He didn't teach Torah to everyone. He had his inner circle of Talmidim. And his students said to him, we wish we would have a Yetzer Hara like you. You're a Malach. He said, if you would have an evil inclination like me, you wouldn't survive it. You couldn't survive it. Why? Because the Gemara says, that the greater you are in spirituality, the more overwhelming is the Yetzer Hara. So you don't have the capacity to be able to contend with what I have to contend with. This is what the Vilna Gaon said to his students. However, he said to them, why do you merit? Why are you so special? Because the siyata d'shmaya that I have, it's like when if you have a large receptacle to receive oil and you have smaller receptacles around it, and you pour the oil into the larger one, and they all have wicks burning in them, and continuously there's a flow from the larger candle receptacle, and where does the overflow go? It continuously replenishes the smaller cups so that candles keep burning. So the reason why you have such a siyata d'shmaya in Torah is because since you're intimately involved with me, so my siyata d'shmaya flows from me, you get the overflow. That's the reason why you people have the special level of understanding of Torah, because I'm the conduit for you to receive it. That's what the Vilna Gaon says to his Talmidim, to his inner circle of students. It's the same idea. Here it does it later. It says Bezarech, and through your progeny, all bracha comes to the world because of Klal Yisrael. Mars tells us in Sukkah that during Sukkot we bring 70 bulls, 70 oxen, which correspond to the 70 nations of the world. So Rabbi Yochanan says that if the nations of the world would only understand that all the bracha they get is due to the Beis HaMikdash, what we do in the Beis HaMikdash, they would have surrounded the Beis HaMikdash with legions of soldiers to protect it, that it should not be destroyed. Not only did they not protect it, they destroyed it. So they were the victims of their own behavior. That's Rabbi Yochanan. It's the same idea. All the bracha, the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara tells us the Shabbos called Even HaShio. Even Shi means it's the stone. It means really that there was a stone in the Kodesh Kadoshim, which was called the Even HaShi. That was the stone that the Akedah took place on that stone. That was the wise called Shtia. Shekolam Kula Shosis Menu. The world is actually sustained through that stone. All bracha floats through that stone. Meaning through Klal Yisrael, the Beis HaMikdash, all the shefa, the unlimited, overwhelming level of bracha that flows from there. So they are the beneficiaries of what we do in the Beis HaMikdash. So when they destroyed that, the bracha no longer flows through there. That's where the Beis HaMikdash is fully functional. So who are the victims? We are definitely the victims, but they victimize themselves. That's Rabbi Yochanan's statement. But it's this concept. They get all this overflow through us. Avram went as God had spoken to him. Hashem says to Avram, Lech lecho. You should go. It's in your best interest. You'll have children. You'll have fame. You'll have wealth. Why did he go? We love Hashem. It's because he followed the order. Lech lecho. It's not because of his personal that he's personally will be a beneficiary. He was totally negated to Hashem. He didn't need any of those incentives. Hashem gave him incentives. Why? It's beneficial. The reason why he went, Kashadibe love Hashem. That's why he went. Hashem gives the dictate, gives you the marching orders, you go. I don't need any encouragements why I should go. That's the Orach Chaim HaKadosh on this pasuk. Vayelechi to Lot. Lot went with him. Avram ben Chomesh Shonim v'Shivim Shonim b'Tzeis Michoron. Avram was 75 years old when he left Choron. Okay. Originally, Hashem had said, Lech lecha me'arzcha u'ma'aret u'beis avicha. That means you should detach stuff from your family. Lot shouldn't have been there, right? Lot tagged along. So why did he tell Lot, I'm sorry, you can't come? And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh addresses this, that Lot imposed himself on Avram Avinu, and at this point, he didn't want to push him away. Later, we'll see in a moment, when they had the dispute with the shepherds, the Roy Lot, Roy Avram, when they separated, then it says, Vayir Elav Hashem. Hashem did not appear to Avram at that special level until Lot detached himself. Okay? Because I'm telling you this for this next pasuk. V'yikach Avram es Sarai Yishto. Avram had taken his wife Sarai, Veslot ben Ochiv. Meaning he agreed. He could have, again, pushed him away. He took him. That's called Ruchusha Masher Rochoshu. And all the possessions that they had amassed, and all the people that they had made, these are the converts, the people he converted to monotheism. They went in the direction of the land of Canaan, and they arrived in Canaan. What does that Torah have to tell me? They took all the possessions. That his wife went with him, we understand. Lot, Torah tells us that he didn't push him away. Why the Rechush? And all that they had amassed, the wealthy, the possessions in Horan, he took that too. Why not? Why shouldn't he take it? Right? I mean, it's obvious. You leave. And we spoke about Pachim Kitanim. If Yaakov took Pachim Kitanim, even the vessels that were nearly worthless, because Sadiq Chavim Monim Yosem Ikufon, that's what we learned from Yaakov. So what? He shouldn't take his possessions. Not even talking about Pachim Kitanim. So what does that have to tell me? He took his possessions. Asher wrote that he had amassed in Choron. It is, we find by Yaakov that when he went back for Pachim Kitanim. He was a very wealthy man. Even for the nearly worthless vessels, he went back. Because Sadiqim Chad Mamon Yosmi Gufam. The Torah tells us when he left Choron, he took his wife, he took his nephew, and he took all his possessions that he had amassed in Choron. What does that Torah tell me this? That his wife went with him is okay. This wasn't a solo trip. Lot, that although he was from his family, he did not push him away. What do you have to tell me? That he took his what? He took the possessions that he amassed in Choron. So it's obvious he took them. Why is Torah sharing this with us? Now, there's a halacha in the Torah, it's called Ir Nidachas. A city where the majority of the city does idolatry, Torah says that the idolaters, if the majority, they're killed. Even those who did not do idolatry, they leave the city, but they have to leave all their possessions in the city, and the city is razed, has to be burnt It says you gather all the possessions to a location, you burn everything. Everything is incinerated. And you can no longer build anything there. Because that's its level of representation. You would say, what did Hashem tell Avram to leave Haran? Because the level of impurity of that location, it's totally ineffective. It's a Besak forest. It represents the ultimate level of impurity. So you would think maybe those possessions are like the possessions of Niri Dachas. You're not able to take anything out of there. So he left Lot left. What about the Rechush? What about the possessions? The Torah says, no, he took that. It wasn't quite that. It wasn't a Niri Dachas. Therefore, he's permitted to take what he took. It's not to teach us Pachim Ketanim. Yaakov, everything was, that wasn't the environment. Yaakov was able to create an insulated environment, and we see what kind of family he raised. It's unrelated to what Lavan was. But here, he was subject to what that community was, maybe to that degree. As a result, even his possessions were putrefied, impurity. Torah says, no, he took it. He took the possessions that he amassed there, that he was able to take. That's what the Torah is going out of its way to tell us, that he took the possessions.